And we are up and running. So hi, everyone. Welcome to our latest of our weekly Musar gathering, also known as Jewish Wisdom for Coping with the Pandemic. As we enter our winter months, we may, I fear, be seeing an uptick, but that's, if I've learned one thing, it is not to try to look too far out in the future. And as many of you know, I'm having surgery tomorrow and I was going to put it off till January. And many people, my wife, chief among them, was like, do not wait. You don't know what's going to be going on in January. We could be in another huge surge again, or you could have the flu or who knows what. So if you can get it done, get it done. I'm going to put up a slide with our schedule of our upcoming weeks before our meditation. Today is our second day of patience, and then next week we will not be meeting as I recover. And then on the 18th, there's this special event where I will be attending the Musar on the Work of Racial Justice, co-facilitated by Rabbi David Jaffe. And I've shared the link to that previously. And then the following week is Thanksgiving. And then last week I said we would be starting on enthusiasm on December 2nd, but I did a teaching this week about Hanukkah and Musar, and it was really fantastic. So I want to teach that during Hanukkah on December 2nd, and then we will start on enthusiasm on December 9th. So, and again, here is this event, which is taking place on November 18th, taking space, seating space, subverting racial dynamics with humility. So as we remember, humility is all about the right amount of, taking up the right amount of space. So with that said, let us all get comfortable in our seats and close our eyes and take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And again, inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And as you go at your own pace of inhaling through the nose and holding, and exhaling through the mouth and holding, if thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and let them go. Like watching a car drive past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, now that we have created sacred space and have come into the moment, the question we'll begin with this week is a simple one. We started working on patience last week. And so my question is, how did patience show up for you? Yes, Carol.
Well, patience always shows up for me with the horses. Always. If you want to learn patience, learn to ride horses, because if you don't have patience with them, if you lose it with the horse will lose it with you. Even a calm one will, I mean, they'll show it different ways. One might get excited and upset. The other one might just refuse to do anything. So that's a good thing. But also, I've been taking these cooking courses now since March 2020. And recently, the chef, and he's reiterated this, but he's been pointing out that one of the most important ingredients in cooking is patience. You need to be willing to wait until something is where it's supposed to be before you go on to the next step. So that shows up for me in my cooking as well.
Need to wait until something is where it's supposed to be before going on to the next step. That is great. That is applicable life wisdom. Thank you, Carol. I saw Janet's hand, and then Karen, and then Nancy.
Oh, no, I didn't have my.
I was in the CVS, actually Walgreens, and I needed to return something. Well, somehow or other, the Walgreens that I go to in my neighborhood doesn't have good Wi-Fi. So I needed to get the printout. Well, not the printout, the receipt, which was online. but every time I got it, it disappeared.
Oh, no.
And then they had to call a manager over, and I kept thinking, patience. It's all about time. It was very frustrating. I certainly was. I mean, this was a $6 item.
Did it help to sit and go, patience?
It did. I really wanted to scream, but I said I didn't.
Thank you, Janet. Well done. Karen.
I have a few quick thoughts. One is, as a horse person, I totally understand the connection to Musar traits and patience in particular when you're on or with a horse or any other animal for that matter. I think they have a tremendous amount to teach us about our soul traits. The second is that in regards to cooking, I don't bake for that particular reason, because you have to be exact and you have to be patient. If the timing is off, different from cooking, it's really difficult to fix. And the third one is that I have a favorite quote, it's not a Jewish quote, that I often refer to that has to do with patience, and it fits in really nicely here. I was thinking more about it during this week, which is that the real art of conversation is not only to say the right thing at the right place, but to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment. And I don't remember if I shared that last week, but I just really love that.
That is fantastic.
That is by Lady Dorothy Neville, I believe.
Could you put that in the chat? That is beautiful.
Yes, Lady Dorothy Neville.
Yes, that is great. Thank you. Yeah, so in some ways that's the harder one, is not to say the wrong thing, because especially if we're getting anxious or activated by something, boom, something can come out, and having the patience not to say it. Okay, we have Nancy and then Joanne.
I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, you didn't? Okay, Joanne.
Okay, so I had a lot of tests of patience today, including like they're doing tons of construction. I had to go to White Plains this morning for a volunteer thing at Gilda's, and then there was a long stretch of road where they were just narrowed, then it narrowed again, and it's always trying to see if people are gonna like merge, and then one after to left right, or there's always somebody who drive around the outside and try to squeeze in, and that kind of thing makes me a little crazy, and I try to deal with it, and not get crazy. And I knew that I'd get there much later than I wanted to, I put in an hour, got to my car, I had a ticket, which I think was written a little bit too soon.
Mm.
But anyway, and then I went to the dollar store to look for stuff for the event in November 14th, and there was the dollar store only had one checkout person, and the line was very long. Though luckily there was somebody in front of me that I'm friendly with, and so we talked. So that helped the time go. And I guess in my car I was trying to remember, some of the prayers that I say at home, the morning blessings and that sort of thing.
Mm.
So that also helps me not get whacked out and crazy. And then I guess in Stop and Shop also, there were lines, and then I wanted to go back, and I decided to shop for the synagogue, and then I shopped for myself. But I must say, I didn't have the patience to wait for the Rebbetzin, who said she texted me about how many carton, this is for our event, how many cases of water she should buy. She thought 3, and I thought 4, and this other lady later chimed in. And then I said, "Are you there? Can I help you, or can I meet you at the shul?" "Oh, I haven't gone yet." And so I just went, because I was already in my car, and I said, I'm getting it. Because sometimes these things, when they're on a really good sale, which it was like 24 bottles for $3.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and since we want to sell water at the event, and it was spring water, I was very excited. So I bought 4 cases, and I just said I did it because somebody else was going to check out, and this other lady, she's the one who told us about that, but she didn't go ahead and buy it.
Mm.
It's always like she's very good resource, but she tends not to be doing the thing. She's like, giving somebody else the information to do it. So I just acted, and I wasn't very patient with that, and I hope they're not upset with me, but I think they were glad that they didn't have to do it. So,
Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunities for patience and sometimes for taking action. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Can I offer a couple examples?
Absolutely.
One was fairly easy. I was in line for my booster shot, and there was someone there were 3 people in front of me. The first person was filling out a form at the counter when it could have been filled out somewhere else. The other people were elderly people who were very confused, having trouble with their paperwork. And I kept saying to myself, be patient, you'll get there, you'll get your shot, it's okay, and everything worked out. The other example of patience for me is much harder. When we moved here 4 years ago, I had to give up on my friends in New Hampshire, one of whom I was very, very close to, and it was really emotionally very difficult. And we lost contact because for one reason or another. And so I tried to reconnect over the last 4 years, and it wasn't happening. But I kept trying, and finally, in the past month or so, we've been able to reconnect and talk about what happened, and we're getting back to where we were before. And I did want to give up several times, but this person is important to me, and I just persevered, and I'm glad.
Beautiful. Thank you. So important to be patient with relationships sometimes. I know I had a few examples as well. As one is I had all these questions about the surgery, and I was getting really nervous about it. And finally, I'm like, I can be patient and wait till Friday and just ask them, or I could call the doctor. So I called, somebody called me back, answered all my questions, and I felt much better about that. And today there was just this enormous line, like waiting for, going through the drive-through to pick up some prescriptions. But, I just went in, I left myself a lot of time and I just said, this is important. I need to get this done today. And, it wasn't a situation where patience was really called for because I was pretty calm about it. And I plan to go, those of you in the Bay Area probably know that Buster Posey is retiring from the Giants, and I went during his press conference so I could listen. So I didn't mind, but it took a while. But some planning sort of prevented me from getting challenged, so I didn't need patience. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks to those of you who decided to share. Let's go in a little bit. Let's go in a bit deeper. Our assumption for this week is that there's a divine spark in everyone, which is occluded by our baggage. And, patience is one of those things which can get kind of amplified by our baggage. If we're not sort of acting from a place of our best self, or sometimes our best self can help us bring patience in, like in Janet's story, it was like, well, I wasn't exactly calm, but I wasn't yelling at anybody either. So that's, that's a win. That is a win for sure. So I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on that today. And we talked last week about the spectrum of patience, where if we have too little, we're angry and frustrated, and too much, we can become inactive. And last week we talked about, the dangers of being too patient a little bit. And this week we're going to look at a somewhat different angle. So may I have a volunteer to read this first bullet?
Yeah, I'd like to volunteer.
Thank you, Carol.
The essence of patience is to live in the present. We are impatient because we want to be in the future faster than reality will take us there. Since we will generally be in the exact same place, whether we will experience patience or impatience, it makes sense to choose to be patient.
Thank you, from Rabbi Zelig Pliskin. So I will copy this to put into the chat. So Rabbi Pliskin, what is his message, or what is he teaching here? Yeah, Paul.
Okay. It reminds me of a book that I read decades ago at this point, but it was written by a woman in the 70s, and I think the title of it was "Don't Push the River." So it's for me, that I really resonate with that statement, and that oftentimes I can see the way things could be, and having the patience to stay the course while reality and everybody else around me sort of, my ego would say fall into line behind my vision, but really it's a lot of times if I'm seeing something, it's certainly aspirational, and it's being patient with maybe that reality not being exactly what comes out, but also that it takes time. And an example I would say would be, I spent the last 3 weeks, just came back to the East Coast with my mother, and she's 92. She needs to get more help than she wants to have. And I know what she needs, and working with her and being patient with her kind of reminds me of what Carol said about horses. She can certainly become very stubborn very quickly if I decide I'm not patient with her. So,
And I've got to be patient with him.
There you go.
I want things to happen faster.
yeah. So
This,
thank you.
this really resonated with me about what my chef says. Because, yeah, you want that food to be done but it's going to be done when it's done. I've been baking sourdough bread now for over a year. And sourdough bread takes its own time. And sourdough is way more forgiving than yeast dough, but it still takes its own time. And you have to give it that time or you're going to get a hockey puck.
Mm. Janet,
Has anybody ever chosen colors to paint the outside of a house?
Ah,
You have to watch it. You have to see what it looks like in the sun and in the shade. You can't just slap it on and then decide right away because no, the color changes. And, you know, my husband laughs and talks about, you know, watching paint dry is
That's what I was gonna say.
watching paint dry is a rather frustrating experience, but you do have to watch the paint dry.
yeah,
Look at it symbolically.
yeah, absolutely. You know, these discussions are reminding me. I used to get in trouble when I was in corporate. I used to get in trouble because I would have some idea kind of similar to Paul, and I was like, okay, here's my idea. Here's the way it could be. And then I was like, come on, let's go. Let's do it. And people, you know, half the room wouldn't even understand what I was talking about. And just really, you know, my manager, like every week, she'd be like, Greg, I keep telling you, you got to slow down. You got to bring people along. You got to explain things slowly. You got to, you know, and I was very far from my Musar practice at that point. And, you know, if I think of Ira Stone's definition of Musar as bearing the burden of the other, I was sort of creating a burden for the other. I think, you know, I was just, you know, trotting upon their feelings and not really, you know, and was focused on the task and focused on the right thing to do and getting it done. And that caused a lot of trouble for myself and for other people. Yes, Karen.
So I'm pretty good for sayings. And I saw one someplace that might have actually been in my local pharmacy, although I'm sure it showed up online. And it's really helpful. And I have said this to others before. Honestly, an emergency on your part does not necessarily constitute an emergency on my part. And when I keep that in mind, it allows me to give more time for whatever it is that I need to do. I leave a little earlier to get where I'm going. I allow a little more time to do something that may be more difficult, and I try to get things done early. It may not always be true, but I have found that cliches become cliches because they're probably true more than 50% of the time.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sort of having a perspective about not letting other people impose their emergencies on me and not me imposing my emergencies on other folks.
And it may not actually be an emergency, just it's perspective again.
Yeah. Yes. It's funny, this company where I worked most of the time, my wife at one point noticed, you know, they have a culture where it's always an emergency. Like there's always some emergency going on. And it's fine if there's an emergency and you got to spend 2 or 3 weeks dealing with it. But as soon as that one's done, there's some other emergency. Then there's some other emergency. And, you know, and now I can look back on them like, yeah, if, you know, that's a management choice. And if they really are all emergencies, it's not being very well managed, or it's in a really difficult field to be in. Yeah, so should we, let's go a little further in our exploration. So let's look at this proverb at the bottom. Maybe we have a volunteer to read the third bullet. Yeah, Joanne.
One who is slow to anger is better than the mighty one, and one who rules over the spirit is better than one who conquers a city.
Thank you. Okay, so what is this? What is this saying in Proverbs? What does that bring up for you? How does that resonate with?
What is the mighty one? Who is the mighty one?
I think, I don't know. What do we think? Who are they referring to as the mighty one?
I think in that context, it's not God, but probably a king or a ruler.
Yeah, I think it's a king, or it's not capitalized. So I would agree. It's probably not God. It's kind of a king or a ruler, or it might be someone with like great physical strength, where it's like, I can carry 10 grocery bags or an entire, couch on their shoulder or something.
Possibly a military commander as well.
Right. Yeah, military commander. And that kind of physical strength is, is by many definitions mighty. But what is Proverbs saying?
Maybe that being patient, you don't need to be strong because there are ways to avoid and manage conflict that are better than fighting.
Yeah, it's beautiful. There's a different way, maybe if managing conflict, you don't need to conquer the city. Yeah, great. What else? It seems to me that it's almost equating like the strength that, oh, Karen, I see your hand, sorry.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the first part. Slow to anger is definitely putting space between the match and the fuse.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that easy to do, to make space between the match and the fuse?
For me, it's not difficult. Part of it might be DNA, and part of it might be that I have had a lot of opportunity to practice that. But I can picture that, and I really like the visual. It's helpful.
Yeah, so in your case, it sounds like you've had practice, and maybe a little bit your nature tends to be a little bit more patient side. I'm speaking for myself, that distance can be pretty short sometimes, and needing to hold back. I remember once, I've shared this story before probably, where one of my daughters was getting very emotional about something, and I was really like just going crazy. I'm like thinking to myself, seriously, you're upset about that? And I just kept it all inside. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. And that was really like, I injured my shoulder like lifting weights in my 20s. And I used to lift a lot of weights, but that was, I think, the heaviest lift I ever had to do, was keeping my mouth shut during that time. Okay, so now here we get into maybe what can we do if we're sort of in that moment where, we're in the CVS or the Walgreens, or we're dealing with the long line, or we're dealing with the person who's not following through. Volunteer to read this this selection from Pele Yotes. Yes.
The entire world understands that patience is very good, but people say, who is the person that can bear insult? It is proper for a person to fortify themselves with great courage and strength. Everything which a person desires, he can achieve with divine assistance. And I don't know how to pronounce his name.
It's a Pele Yotes. It's actually by Ebenezer Papo. This was a Musar book that was written in the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century. So there's, because of the Musar movement in Lithuania, which sort of popularized Musar within that community, it's tempting to think that this was an Ashkenazi practice, but there were Musar communities all over the world. And this was a very, very popular book in the Jewish community in Turkey. And it's like 275 essays on all kinds of different topics. So in this one, what does it mean when he says, who is the person that can bear insult? Yeah, Joanne.
There is a psalm by King David, and I don't remember what number it is, but he does say that, they were scornful towards me, but I was silent, and he had a lot of moments like that, I think. And it is hard. I mean, and especially, if you're the kind of person, like, oh my God, they're doing that again, kind of thing. I find myself doing, to not say something. For example, we have a really nice guy who's the office manager / bookkeeper, but he's like a 1099 person. He's self-employed, and he has all these contacts, and he tries to get you to buy things through his website, so he gets points for that. And so I was there for some reason last Friday, and Ruth, who's like 90 something years old, who's amazing, was helping him because she's the treasurer, and there was some money owed to Sisterhood from the synagogue because people paid online. Anyway, and then we were talking about this event, and that we need a sign for out front. And Stephen had somebody suggested one of his people, quote unquote. And I was like immediately like, oh, it's probably costs an arm and a leg, and and Ruth was like, I was like off the wall. And I said, fine, okay. Ruth volunteered to call, and she dealt with it, and she even volunteered to pay for it, so I couldn't argue with that. But she was right, and he was right, but he has suggested things for the shul. Oh, like, why don't we get that same day, just before this, why doesn't the shul get a Keurig, coffee maker? And it was like, we have other coffee pots, we don't need that, and it only serves one person at a time, and it's too expensive, the whole thing. So, but I realized that I should have just shut my mouth. But they know me well enough that they took it from where I came and did what they needed to do. And I apologized, which I do very often for very many things. That's it.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Joanne. And that's an expansive definition of bearing insult. It could be someone's insulting you, it could directly, or it could be it's like, that's an insult, that idea feels insulting to me or inappropriate, and so something which makes us aggrieved. So yeah, that fits in under that category really well. Karen.
Hi, my couple of thoughts are that being insulted is another one of those times that gives us an opportunity to practice our patience. The second is that knowing where an insult originates can help deflect its impact more about the person it's coming from, who may not have the right words, maybe having a more difficult day, not so much about me. If I think it's about me, I need to consider that. And that silence can help diffuse a situation, and so perhaps that reduces impatience. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense, Karen. So what's going on at the end of this? Like, those are some really good behavioral strategies. that Karen was just talking about. But this is, at the end, it says, everything which a person desires, they can achieve with divine assistance. So how might that come into play? Or is that like a little too scary? Carol, what do you think?
I was thinking that maybe it's, I'm not real God directed. Okay. I
Mhm.
don't think about God as a singular entity. So, but I look at that and I say, well, if we hold a divine spark within us, and that's our assumption, then we can call upon that divine spark within us for that strength and courage and say, look, I know that, okay, this guy just insulted me and I want to smack him. Yeah, but I'm better than that because I have this divine spark, and so does he. He just can't see it.
Mm.
So, if you're not in touch with the idea of a personal God, I mean, that's me, for example, then for me, that's the only way to look at it is something inside of me, something pure, the divine spark inside of me that I need to get in touch with. And the person that just caused me insult or hurt is not in touch with their own. And if I remember that, maybe, and I haven't really thought about it that way before today. So if I can remember that, I think that will help me when I'm standing in line and somebody's rude or whatever, to just go, I have the divine spark, so does he. It's just occluded today.
Thank you, Carol. That's a great way to frame it. Paul.
Actually, it's me.
Okay.
That line, the first thing I thought of was any 12-step program
Mm.
asks you to be in touch with your higher power, whatever it is, and that is your guide.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. Sorry, was there more you're going to say?
No, I was trying
Yeah.
to think of something, but I couldn't.
Yeah, I think one of the 12 steps is something like, I'm powerless against my addiction and I need a higher power to help me through. And sometimes habits and addiction aren't all that far apart. And, sometimes anger can be an addiction, or just taking it and not saying anything can be an addiction. And sometimes we need a higher power. I know for me, my favorite parenting prayer was, God help me get through the next 2 minutes. Sometimes, it's just, then help me get through the next 2 minutes. And those little things can make a huge difference. Okay, well, Janet, yes.
Being an editor, I would change one of the words in that quote and achieve with divine assistance.
Sorry, Janet, my internet just glitched. I missed the edit you would make.
Okay, instead of the assumption that you can achieve it and to achieve anything with divine assistance, I would say more likely.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
We need all the help we can get, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, in our lead up to, Karen.
I think what else that's saying is that we are more likely to achieve when we don't feel like we're doing it alone, when we have wind at our back, someone in our corner. And for me, divine assistance, actually, part of it comes from my studies, such as Musar. And when I engage with those traits that seem to bring me spiritually closer, I seem to be more productive.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, text study is one way of connecting with the divine for sure. That's a wonderful observation. Okay, so I really liked this teaching from Rabbi Sonia Pilz from the Musar Torah commentary, and we heard a different selection from her last week, and this is going to be a lead into our breakout groups. And what she wrote was, Musar teaches patience with ourselves and others, the patience it takes to forgive our own anxieties and doubts and the consequences they may bring to our lives, the patience it takes to postpone and adjust our visions, the patience it takes to perceive ourselves and others clearly, the patience it takes to assess and accept our reality, including our fears and the time it takes to become more faithful and trusting. So I will paste this in the chat as part 1 here. Now with your partner, I took sort of these 4 different categories and maybe think about which would you like to cultivate in yourself. Forgiving your own anxiety and doubts, postponing and adjusting vision, perceiving yourself and others, assess and accept reality, or maybe none of these resonate with you. So this is our topic for the breakouts. Once again, I will paste that in the chat. And then I will open the rooms. Okay, and now the rooms are open. Joanne, do you see your button? For those of you who are watching on the streaming, hey everyone, welcome back. So I'm curious, would anyone like to share an insight they have or something that they think they might want to work on? Yeah, Joanne.
Well, I think forgiving myself for my fears and maybe for some things I've done, whether recently or a long time ago, or, people I should have behaved differently towards or been more grateful to, but I have to forgive myself. I figure if I made it through Yom Kippur so many years, I'm okay. I'm okay. I mean, I tried to actually look up some people from my past, and I found one person, and then I said, I don't know, it's like 30 years later. What? Never mind. They got on with their life. They don't probably know, even, just forgive it, forget it, forgive and forget.
Yeah, forgiving yourself. Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, Carol.
Patience when interacting with people can depend a great deal on the other person. You can think that you're being patient and kind and helping, and it can backfire in your face depending on where the other person is. And you have to think about, okay, my heart was in the right place. I did the best I could. Now, where did I go wrong? Of course, you want to think about that, but you also might want to think about something is happening with this person, that this person perceived me as being hostile in some way. And it may have nothing to do with what I said, or it may have something to do with what I said, but it had nothing to do with my intentions. If your intentions are to be kind and to be helpful, but it's a minefield sometimes. If you're dealing with someone who's really upset, it is a minefield.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And being able to be patient and to hold that space and to be there with them during those times, this can be really hard.
Yes.
Anyone else? I want to bring that slide up again because I thought of a question as I was percolating on this. So, why are all of these things linked to patience? It says, Musar teaches patience, and then these are forgiving or changing visions or perceiving things with clarity. What is it? Why is patience kind of invoked with this?
My sense is that, my experience anyway, is that, all of these require time, like access and accept our reality. That's not something that's done, it's certainly not one and done. You can't just do it and then you don't have to do it ever again. It's always a process. But, forgiving my anxieties and my doubts, I mean, those never go away, and they're always going to come back again, whatever they are. So each of these is either, I think for me anyway, either because it takes time to go from where I am to where I'd like to be, or just patience with the fact that whatever I'm dealing with is always going to be around. And it's like, having a beginner's mind, I think of in sort of Buddhist thought anyway, that chop wood, carry water, at the beginning all over again. So hope that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This passage always makes me think of the word, or not always, since I didn't read it until today, but right now it's making me think of the word hope. Does anyone else see something hopeful about this passage, and how might hope be related to this? Yeah, Joanne.
To me, there's a hope of progress, by doing all of the Musar practices, whatever the topic. And also that if I forgive myself, then I kind of have a clean slate. And that's very hopeful. And if I make a mistake, I can also erase it if I forgive myself. So that's hopeful. Just go on, we mentioned this, do the best you can. This is Maya Angelou, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better.
Love that. A lot of good quotes here today. Anyone else see threads of hope in this? Yeah, Carol.
I think the idea that you can forgive ourselves, that's always hopeful, because when you forgive yourself, you say, okay, I blew it, but I didn't blow it forever. That doesn't make me a bad person. I made a mistake. Let me see what I can do to fix it if that's possible. But I'm not a mistake. I am not my mistakes. Okay? They're part of me, but they're not the sum of me. And as long as you can grow and forgive oneself and move on and grow, I think that's very hopeful.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I'm hearing you say is it's, the ability to forgive yourself is hopeful, and the impact can be really powerful, as Joanne was saying. And I think implicit in what both of you were saying is, it's possible to do these things. Like if you can be patient, that means that if you keep working at it, you can get there. That you can actually do these things, which none of them is very easy, or some may be easier than others for some of us. But it's a very, there's a really hopeful thread in Jewish teachings that has a lot of faith in humanity. You know, it comes back to this divine spark. We can do this. You know, we can forgive ourselves, and we can, sorry, my mind is blanking out on the other things on the list. You know, we can perceive ourselves and others clearly, and we can accept our reality, however challenging that might be. And those are really powerful and transformational things. And if you think you can do it, and if you have someone encouraging you, then you can do it.
I'd like to add that you make a mistake and you learn that this was a mistake and you don't have to do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, just it occurred to me while you were talking that I think part of the hopefulness here is that I think we've all experienced each one of these 4 items, you know, these 4 points, you know, at different times in our life, and it's made a difference. So maybe not a huge difference, but it's made a little bit of difference. And, you know, so you know, for me anyway, I can go back and think, all right, so I have had that experience before, and it did make a difference. If I keep at it, you know, that's the patience, just keep at it, and it'll make a difference over time as well. I know for myself, I've been in a 12-step program for about 4.5 years. And I didn't think I was going to make any difference in my life at all at the beginning. And it takes time. It really takes a lot of patience, and just trying to focus on simple things at first. And a lot of it is forgiving others and forgiving myself, you know, maybe more importantly, and relying on the divine, the high power. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I listen with an open heart. Well, friends, let's close our eyes once again. Taking a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. Let us take in a moment of gratitude for these souls who've chosen to spend an hour with us today, for a divine spark, which is there supporting us, pointing us towards our better selves, and waiting for us with infinite patience, knowing everything that we are capable of. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, thank you all so much for being here this week. Perhaps I will see some of you at the David Jaffe workshop in 2 weeks, and I'm wishing you all a happy Thanksgiving in 3 weeks. And I will see, if not sooner, I hope to see you back here in a month for a special session on Hanukkah.
A healing wishes to you, Greg, for tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yes, refuah, shlema. And thank you.
Absolutely healing wishes. And
Thank
Yes, in advance, Refuah Shlema.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for doing these.
Greg.
It is so clear how much preparation and thought you put into it, and I just want to say how much I appreciate it.
Same here.
Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome.
What's your Hebrew name?
It's Avraham ben David.
And mom?
Mom is Elaine.
Elaine. Okay. Thank you. I'll put you on the list for tomorrow.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.